right. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Freelance Business Week Day 2, brought to you by Denver and Dallas. We are going to get started in about 1 minute, and I'm super excited about this session. And so hold tight. We're going to have 1 minute of just hanging out. So get some water, get some coffee, and come right back.
I always want to play the Jeopardy theme when this is happening.
I know. I wish I had music. I don't have any music. I'm sorry. I'm not that sophisticated.
Me neither. Me neither.
I could turn on my little Alexa here, but that might be doing the most. So we'll just hang out.
Sounds good.
Did you get a lot of snow, Jess?
Not too much. I was worried I'd have to get up and shovel the walks, but no, it looks like it's all melted, which is handy. And the grass is going to be so green.
It is.
It is so green.
I want this to be the last one. I'm kind of over it. Like, that's enough.
Yeah. We've had all of these tricky fake springs, and I'm sick of it.
Yeah, I'm over it. I'm ready. Okay, here we are. We're at 10:01. Welcome, everybody. My name is Alicia, and I'm helping organize our wonderful Denver speakers. So it's my pleasure to introduce Jess M. I'm only saying M because I'm not going to butcher her last name because that would be rude. So she's going to talk to us today about how to show your jerk brain who's boss and, get past that burnout or hopefully not approach burnout. And yeah, so without further ado, Jess, I'm going to let you take it from here.
Great. So I'm going to share my screen. Great. That's the last slide. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Hi. Welcome to How to Show Your Jerk Brain Who's Boss. And it's all about, like she said, beating the burnout, battling that self-doubt, and hopefully bettering your business, right? So I like to start off by kicking off every workshop with a little bit about who I am, what I've done, and why you can actually trust what I have to say. So I'm Jess Manuszak, and I've been freelancing for about 8 years now. I've had my own copywriting and marketing studio for about 7. And through that time, I have always been able to pay rent and buy fancy cheeses, right? I've reached my own level of success, and it's kind of stayed there for a minute, which is lovely. I own Verve and Vigor Copywriting Studio based in Denver. And then I also founded a company last March in 2020 called I Love You, the Monsters, which essentially is like a mental health hub that joins freelancers with therapists who specialize in remote sessions and do sliding scale payments. So mental health is so important, and we're going to get into more about why. I have been fortunate enough to write for brands you've heard of and seen in the wild, like Nike and Levi's and Squarespace and Acuity Scheduling and Emily McDowell, etc. And I'll say you should trust me because I can sort of pull off the fancy ass hat in this photo. But most importantly, I am a mentally and physically messy person. I went to my first therapist at 14, right? I have been off and on literally dozens of psychiatric medications over my life. I've been hospitalized for my mental health disorder, and I have an ongoing adrenal chronic health disorder that also kind of mucks up the works, right? I am happy to announce that about 1.5 years ago, I was deemed cured of my emotional regulation disorder, which is awesome. And And I want to talk to you a little bit about how you can show up as a whole human, right? And still have a successful business. So here's why mental health matters more for freelancers. We are twice as likely to struggle with recurrent depression, be hospitalized for a psychiatric disorder, and have suicidal thoughts and ideation, right? I checked myself into a hospital about 5.5 years ago, and that's when my life really changed. We are 6 times more likely to deal with ADHD in our daily lives and have symptoms that actually interfere with our productivity. 3 times more likely to have anxiety, which of course can also go hand in hand with substance abuse stuff. We need to self-medicate to unplug at the end of the day. And we're 10 times more likely to have a mood regulation disorder that needs regular upkeep for day-to-day functioning, like bipolar type 1 and 2, borderline personality disorder, seasonal affective depression can sometimes be grouped into that category, and the list goes on. It makes a lot of sense why mental health is such a big deal for us. It's almost like this self-perpetuating cycle of like, because a lot of us have anxiety, depression, creativity, independence, drive, right? We go into freelancing to grant ourselves the flexibility to accommodate ourselves, whether that's mental illness, physical illness, or just like being a person in the world. Unfortunately / fortunately, freelancing and the lifestyle that typically goes with it can actually exacerbate stressors and mental messiness that we already have. When we think about it, we are often working alone from home, so we're socially isolated. There have been days, especially back in the day, where I would call a friend at night and realize it was the first time I'd spoken aloud all day, right? We have irregular sleep schedules, trying to keep deadlines. A lot of times we're in that like survival mode eating patterns. I can distinctly remember like hunched over my kitchen sink, like shoveling in life cereal like Gollum and being like, yeah, this is fine. I'm happy. This is success, right? Plus, you know, financial stress, uncertainty, self-worth stuff that can come up. Like the word trigger is kind of overused, but freelancing is one of the biggest triggers a lot of us will ever face. On a biological level, this ongoing stress regularly activates our sympathetic nervous system. And our sympathetic nervous system is basically an involuntary rapid response in our body. And you've probably heard it talked about like fight or flight, okay? And this was useful back in the day. It meant that if a cougar was in a bush, we would start to get anxious about bushes. It saved us from getting eaten by cougars. Unfortunately, our bodies haven't quite kept up with the evolution of society, which means if we get an aggressive email from a client, our bodies can register that as a cougar in the bush, right? So first thing in the morning, we wake up, we check our Gmail, we get a shitty email from a client, and pretty soon our sympathetic nervous system is so activated, right? Our body's flooded with hormones and adrenaline and cortisol. And our brains match our body's response. So it makes sense that we might have some brain forest fires all the time. Even if you're a quote unquote like neurotypical human, you're still human. And the things we're going to go over definitely helps. So, step 1, we're going to talk about therapy because we're going to talk about therapy. Step 2, we're going to plan around your natural cycles. We're going to figure out how to routinely be flexible with flexible routines. We're going to start beefing up your emotional cup. And we're going to prepare for le disaster, which, if you say it in a French accent, makes it seem a lot less daunting. Let's talk therapy. And therapy, I know, is a loaded word. Therapy, couples therapists, all of that good stuff. Therapy is magic. Therapy is a spa for your brain. And I know that it's stigmatized, but I want to talk about why it's worth it. Things to keep in mind. The cool thing about therapy is that it gets in there at your foundational level and helps strengthen that foundation that everything else in your life and business is built off of. When I think about the differences between therapists and life coaches, a lot of people will first hire a life coach. And I want to add the disclaimer that some life coaches are incredible. There is a time and a place for a great life coach, but a life coach is not a therapist. Life coaches sometimes can apply paint, right, to a house that's decaying. Therapists get in there and help strengthen that foundation. I always say that you can't plant the flowers until you till the soil. And therapy is that thing that tills the soil so you can plant the flowers and then later harvest the flowers. I believe in this so deeply that I have a half sleeve of flower tattoos based off of that motto. Therapy is not just for crisis situations. I think a lot of times we get it in our heads that therapy is for triage. Therapy is when you're freaking out. And the kind of unfortunate, ironic part is that when you're in crisis, you may not always have the perspective, self-awareness, patience, or energy to go searching for a therapist. Plus, some of them book out. Most of them book out, especially during the pandemic. So when it comes to working with a therapist, plan a little far in advance so that you are preventing the crises versus smearing paint on them. We want cures, not Band-Aids. Again, it's different than a life coach or any coach. Coaches can be useful. Coaches are not therapists, right? Certified therapists often require 3,000 hours of post-grad work, 1,000 of which are supervised. Life coaches technically do not need any sort of qualification. And so it can be nice seeing a therapist since they have that safeguard of experience and like legal regulations. It's more affordable than you might think. I know as freelancers, many of us don't have insurance, or if we do, we have really bad insurance, myself included. According to the 2020 Thumbtack census, the average cost of a 1-hour therapy session with a US therapist is between $60 and $120, paying out of pocket without insurance, okay? If, like, depending on your circumstance and what you and the therapist work out, it's very likely that you may only need to see a therapist once a month, right? Maybe twice a month. Therapy is a business investment. Just like you would hire a business coach, a therapist is a business investment. I do not think it is a write-off, so don't quote me on that, but it is an investment. And now I'm stepping off my therapy soapbox. Thank you. Step 2, plan around your natural productivity cycles. And when I say natural cycles, I'm not just talking about, like, for the women here, like, I'm not just talking about periods, though that also plays a part. I'm talking about the ways our bodies respond to things like busy seasons in our business, to seasonal seasons in the world, to the pull of the moon, etc. Okay? Our bodies respond to different external stimuli that then inform how productive we can be. So what we want to do is track ourselves. We want to start collecting concrete, quantitative data on our productivity and moods. This is really easy. It's called a mood tracker app. My favorite mood trackers that are free or have free versions are My Therapy, Dailyo, and Mood Tracker. I personally use Dailyo because it's a color-coded system, and all you do is pick a smiley face. So I get a notification on my phone that has a smiley face grid. I pick which smiley face aligns with me, and then I'm able to go back and look through my app and be like, oh, so for the entire month of December, I'm mostly reds and yellows. For the entire month of June, I'm mostly greens. Well, that tells me that when it comes to launching a new program or booking myself to the brim, June is a great time to do that, and winter probably isn't. Like, there's no reason to force productivity that just doesn't align with who you are. I'll say this multiple times, but we make the rules. Like, we get to decide what works for us in our business because we work for ourselves. Step number 3, allow for flexibility while still showing up in your business. Days will happen, like days in all caps, because we are complex, nuanced human beings. We inevitably will be sick, we will be sad, we will be stressed. This is a part of life. We have a stereotype already as freelancers of being flaky. A lot of people, when they talk about freelancers or hiring contractors, there's sort of that undercurrent of like, oh yeah, well, so-and-so fell off the earth and I had to check their Twitter account to see if they were still alive. Most business owners have a horror story like that with a contractor. We want to make sure we're not perpetuating that stereotype. If you're like me and you happen to be neurodivergent with, anxiety, PTSD, all of those letters, it is especially important to communicate with your clients. That's the number one thing I want to say is like, just communicate. If you're having a day and you have to push a deadline, send a quick email that says, hey, I got to push this deadline, period, send. So let's talk about these scheduling stuff specifically. There's a difference between self-care and self-pity, self-medication, and self-destruction. The great thing about flexible routines is that it helps make sure that you're still taking care of yourself while you're taking care of your business, because we know that those things are intertwined. Our businesses are only as successful and happy and thriving as we are as human beings. So this is everything we just talked about, of course, and I want to talk about how I make it happen. I personally use physical note cards. I used to have, for years, really fancy giant paper planners where I could write down everything. And what I found for myself is that it constantly made me feel behind. And because my own body has a hard time differentiating between anxiety and anticipation, I found myself stressed all the time. If I was sick one day and I missed, my first task on my to-do list from 9 to 9:30, pretty soon that mental spiral of like, oh, well, I can't keep it together, I'm not organized enough, all of that stuff starts to set in. What I developed for myself, because I like writing things down and I need the flexibility to shift things around, is a note card system. So I always have a stack of different colored note cards by my desk. Each color represents a different bucket of things I need to get done. So for example, pink cards are administrative tasks. Blue cards are moving my body. So everything has its own category, which helps me see how my day is structured. Let me give you a good example. So pink is administrative. So I have send client update emails. I know that I do this every Monday, so I just tagged it in the corner Monday, okay? And I'm going to keep this and recycle it every week. Inbox 0, pink, administrative. But because it's something that I do every working day, it has no date on it, and this will be recycled every day. Blue, body, walk the wee beastie. That's my body bucket a lot of times. And again, it will be rescheduled. So how it works for me is every day I like to choose, okay, I know I can do 6 administrative tasks, and I know I can do 2 body tasks, right, et cetera, so I can pull those 6 pink cards, those 2 blue cards. And rather than having a rigid bullet pointed schedule with times assigned, I'm able to physically rearrange my day in a visual, concrete way. This isn't super novel, right? We see a lot of software companies orchestrating these systems for us. Trello is an awesome solution for this. It's essentially visual note cards that you can arrange onto different boards. Because I'm so tactile, I like the note card method. I've considered a lot the paper waste, and I just want to be clear that I reuse note cards, I write very small, and I recycle. So get off my dick. Great. There are lots of other options for it. Google Tasks is another great one. Asana, 17 Hats, which is an all-in-one project management software. When you have the flexibility in your schedule, you're more likely to get stuff done because there's not that mental resistance piece that I think we're all pretty familiar with. Step number 4, start beefing up your emotional cup. There was a meme going around a couple months ago that said, what's in your cup will spill out over everything. And that means that what is on our insides, our emotional cups, are going to get bumped. The world is bumpy. When we get bumped into, whatever is inside of us is going to spill out onto other people. So we want to look at what's inside of us so we can control what spills out. We want to be intentional with the ways we show up in the world, especially when it comes to clients. Like, I have cried on client phone calls in the past. It's not super fun. This is how you can help mitigate that. Research shows us that it takes about 10,000 tries to master a new mindset, which is really a trendy way of saying to rewire the neural pathways in your brain and create new patterns of thinking. That's what mastering your mindset means, to me at least. 10,000 seems like a lot. But if we think about saying something to ourselves 100 times a day, okay, chances are the thing we say to ourselves will take 3 seconds or less. That's 300 seconds a day, or less than 5 minutes. To give you an idea, one of my weird beliefs that I used to have was that I was just intrinsically bad, that I was just a bad person, right? Of course, I know now that is objectively untrue, but that was a belief I had for 28 years of my life. I spent 5 minutes a day telling myself something, and it meant that in 3 months, 100 days, I was able to erase that old, dusty, tired story and step into something new, right? It was 28 years of trauma that had been completely reworked in 3 months. It's worth it. And I know when we hear the word affirmations, we're like, oh my God, affirmations. Or at least that's how I feel. Because when I first got started, a lot of the advice was like, tell yourself you're the best. I'm a boss bitch. I'm hot. I'm so good at what I do. I'm the greatest in the world. And like when I was so depressed I couldn't get out of bed, it felt disrespectfully untruthful to tell myself I was the best in the world. It didn't even ring true enough to have any sort of psychological benefit for me. So I discovered neutral affirmations, and that's what really changed everything, right? Self-improvement is a dial, not a switch. It's not all or nothing. So if we have these negative records, we can transition into neutrality and eventually bridge that gap into pure positivity. Some of my favorite neutral affirmations, mine that I still use, I am not the worst. I am not the worst. Today's going to be fine. Yeah, I'm going to survive this, right? They don't have to be these over-the-top, hyperbolic declarations of perfection. They can just be these little nuggets of kindness that we gift ourselves. There was this old mental health book when I was a kid, and I remember seeing the title in Barnes and Noble and like cackling. I think I was like 8. And it's called Who Moved My Cheese? It was a very popular pop psychology book, and in it he talks about saying affirmations in the mirror, which we know is a stereotype, right? We always see it in sitcoms where they're in the mirror and they're like pep talking themselves. I'm going to ask you very kindly to pep talk yourself in a mirror. And here's why. Something really cool happens when we do. And I call it the affirmation trifecta, which I made up. When we say affirmations in our heads, we're thinking it, okay? That's cool. That's great. That's better than nothing. That's turning the dial instead of focusing on the switch. But when we can stand in front of a mirror and say it out loud, incredible things happen. So not only are we processing the act of saying this thing out loud, we are hearing somebody else say it back to us, and we're seeing somebody else say it back to us, which all triggers different processing points and means that these affirmations get in deeper. They're more effective. So even though it feels stupid to stand in front of your mirror and be like, I'm not the worst, it actually has benefits. And I'm going to tell you to suck it up and feel stupid because it's worth it. You have practiced doubting yourself, right? You've practiced being stressed. You've practiced feeling behind. These new ways of being are just different kinds of practice. You're never going to get it right on the first try because that does not exist. Instead, what we can do is try and reiterate on those tries until we become someone who has such a strong emotional cup that when we get bumped, we can say, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. You bumped me and my cup is spilling a little bit, right? Step number 5, have a toolkit for when shit explodes, because it's going to. That's not a reflection on you, your life, your business, your clients. It's just a fact of being a person in the complex world, especially right now. We're also going to call this reliably activate your parasympathetic nervous system. So as we know now, the sympathetic nervous system is that like fight or flight, oh my God feeling where like you get that full body adrenaline rush, right? The parasympathetic nervous system is this soothing, calm, relaxing effect that is often activated like right before we fall asleep, is often when it's like strongest. There are a couple ways to do this, and it involves a distress tolerance toolkit. When I feel, for lack of a better term, I feel overstimulated. Like lights feel too bright. The emails feel like they're never going to end. Sounds are like really pointy. And as a result, I feel pissy, tired, resentful, none of which are conducive to running a great business and also like feeling good. So what we want to do is ground ourselves in tactile senses. That's all it takes, literally. And I want to be clear that distress tolerance toolkits are a lot like therapists. You don't need to be in like a blind crisis to tap into this. They can also be a preventative tool when you start feeling that stuff creeping up. So I actually have a tiny little bag that is beautiful and silk and glittery, and I love it. And it has my little toolkit in it. I almost always have something for sight. That's an eye mask. That's a sad lamp. That's stepping outside and changing your environment. So while there are concrete things in this toolkit, I also want to let you know that there are like similar tools out in the world that can offer you the same benefits. So for example, if you don't have an eye mask, go outside, feel the sun on your skin, look at the bright sky. Sound, for me, again, it's about mellowing and muting. So like earplugs are a great one, mellow music, white noise. The Calm app is a great option. Touch, this can be something soft, but I kind of like active touch things. So like filing my nails is great because I have an action and that grittiness brings me back into my body. For a while, when I'd be out at restaurants and I'd feel like really activated, I would just hold ice in my hand under the table for a couple seconds as that reminder of like, oh, right, I'm here, I'm in my body, it's gonna be okay. And it helps put things in perspective. Smell is another one. Essential oils, brewing tea, and like taking like the commercial grade sips of it. And then of course, you know, spritz on some of your favorite perfume. Taste, chocolate truffles, clementines are my favorite because they have lots of different textures. Mint, like just popping an Altoid. It's another great thing. And then my favorite is breath work. I feel like in my industry, like my internet bubble of friends, this has become a really trendy term. And I think it's accidentally losing some of its potency because breath work is really impactful on like our physical biology. And we know this. So the 3 breathwork patterns that are most useful for me are the energizing one, the balance one, and the relaxing one. And this is how I classify it in my head. Oftentimes our levels of stress correlate to the amount of oxygen in our blood. When our blood feels over-oxygenated, that's when we get excited, energized, maybe a little anxious. When oxygen levels in our blood lower, that's when we enter more into that like parasympathetic state and we feel relaxed, at ease, comfortable, safe. So if you want to energize yourself, you're going to introduce more oxygen. So you're going to inhale for 3 seconds, exhale for 3. Inhale for 6 seconds, exhale for 3. We're getting more oxygen in than we're letting out. For a more balanced one, we have what's called the box breath, which probably you've heard of. And that's in for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. So we're introducing as much oxygen as we are releasing. And this can be pretty grounding. The one I use most, because I am an anxious human being, is in for 3, out for 6. This, of course, lowers the oxygen level. We know from research that even doing these breathing patterns 6 times in a row creates effects in our brain and in our body and in our hormone levels. So when you see breath work and breath work practitioners, they actually really are onto something, and it's a powerful tool. Number 6 and the last one. Remember, you can't really break this. You can't really break your business permanently. We are all experimenting with what works for us, what works for our clients, and how we can just like survive this thing called life, right? Maybe have some fun along the way. And we can get in our heads thinking that there's all this pressure to be perfect. And when we're worried about being perfect, we hide. And when we hide, then our business loses momentum, which reinforces our beliefs that we aren't perfect. It's a dial, not a switch. It's an experiment. It's not a performance. It's all practice. And you make the rules. That's why we're all doing this. Like, we got into this to decide what we wanted our lives to look like, but oftentimes we can still defer to how other people are leading theirs. What works for someone else likely won't work for you because you are not someone else. Don't be afraid to play. People live and make money in shades of gray, whether they're perfect or not. And also, no one's perfect. I have proof of this because Dr. Pepper is still a thing. And let me elaborate. In 2011, the Dr. Pepper we all know and love introduced an ad campaign called Not for Women. The ad said it's not for women, all 23 flavors, just 10 manly calories. Sorry, ladies, Dr. Pepper 10 isn't for women, but we may have something more your speed at drpepper.com. The actual F, right? This is an abomination. This is like, call your PR team in the middle of the night because, oh my God, you're coming under siege. I didn't remember this until I Googled shockingly bad ad campaigns, right? My hunch is you may not remember this either. And that speaks to the fluidity and evolution that businesses go through. You're not going to permanently break it, right? And I've compiled some very articulate thoughts on this that I think will be valuable. That's the first one. That's the second one. That's the last, or that's the third one. And this is my final thesis on what I think of this campaign, right? We still drink Dr. Pepper. You're not going to break your freelance business. I Love You the Monster started because when I text my best friend, I say, I love you the mostest. And my phone auto-corrected to I love you the monsters. And I realized as the pandemic was setting in that so many people would be struggling because it amplifies the issues that us as freelancers already have. The social isolation increased. The financial stress increased. But there are ways that we can take control of how we show up and how we serve our clients. So if you want to be best friends and get intimate, here is the I Love You the Monsters Instagram handle and the website. If you are a licensed mental health professional or you know one, please send them to the site to fill out the preferred therapist application. It's free to be listed. It's free to apply. It's free to find a therapist, all that jazz. Verve and Vigor is my copywriting studio. I am currently booked out for the next 1.5 years, so you can go creep on me, but unfortunately you can't hire me. And in case you ever forget, I love you the monsters, and thank you for letting me be here with you. Now, let's stop sharing. if I can figure it out. Stop screen. Ha ha.
Thank you so much, Jess. We don't have any questions per se, but you are rocking the boat. Or that's maybe not a good one. That's maybe not a good one. You are blowing this thing out the water, I should say. There is, I love your energy over here. There is, you just detailed my day yesterday. I literally felt and heard what you said. Thank you. Somebody wants to upvote your session 100 times. Thank you for this. And then there's a me too, best session so far. So you're getting mad love over here. And I think we appreciate your transparency, your vulnerability to, we don't have it all figured out sometimes and we need to take care of ourselves. And so I'm just going to kind of let it ride for just a second and see if any questions pop in. But are there anything else you want us to know? I mean, I know that you're booked out, so we can't hire you, but do you have any offers, any other tips, tricks, anything else you want us to know?
I would say that I hired a junior copywriter for my business so that I could spend more time on I Love You the Monsters as my hobby, because that's how much I believe in this. So I would say follow the Instagram account. It's all guides and data and instructional manuals on comparison data between things like life coaches and therapists and those monthly investments. There's more information on affirmations. If you want more resources, that's where I live. And I would love to have you guys. So also, will you screenshot the comments for me so I can look at them when I feel sad?
Yes.
Thanks.
Uh-oh. Yes, I will. When it loads.
Appreciate it.
Oh, you also got a bunch of hand clap emojis. Copy those over.
Thank you. And thank you guys. Thank you for trusting me with this. I know mental health is hard, but it's probably the most worthwhile thing we do for ourselves.
For sure. Okay. Oh, there was one thing. This was me. I wanted to see your shiny silver bag that you talked about, but
Oh my God, it's in the other room and I'm not wearing pants. I'm wearing my fancy lady shirt and my cool girl lipstick and then pajama shorts. So
okay, got it. Fair enough. Well, maybe it'll be on. Maybe you'll show it on your IG at some point.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Here's a question. How do you recommend we manage our natural productivity cycles? Example, night person or morning person in a structured world.
Most important thing is setting accurate expectations. This can look like putting your business hours on your website and also just clearly communicating with clients. So in my case, I managed a kids' day camp from ages 16 to 22. So my just natural biology rhythm is that I'm awake from 5:30 in the morning and I work from 6 to 1 every day, Monday through Thursday. That's it. If my clients are outside that time zone, I will occasionally make an exception, but otherwise they know when they sign on with me that that's what's going to happen. Set the rules and communicate them, and it makes it easier for other people to follow them in your business. Does that help at all?
I'm going to answer yes. That was helpful.
I would say just get over the expectations that everyone else has for when you should work.
Got it. And then, so my follow-up question to that would be, let's say that's in your welcome packet or your proposal or whatever the case is, and you get some pushback on, oh, well, what if I have a somewhat urgent request? How do you manage getting over, okay, well, if they don't like this, then they might not sign with me, and then I could potentially, not have that revenue. Can you talk us through what that looks like?
There's a balance, right? My boundaries were a lot different when I was first getting started. When you got to pay rent, you're going to take on the project that's outside of your working hours. Now what I do is it helps to tell the clients why, right? I don't have the diva mentality of, oh, well, I only work in the mornings. I say, I do my best creative work before 1 p.m. Mountain, and I want to make sure you're getting the best of me. So can you try to make your schedule work to fit in that time frame so that our project turns out better than you expect? Right? So there's a difference in positioning of being like, fall the fucking line or get out, and being like, hey, let me help you best. Like, help me help you.
Got it. So there's a comment, it said, yes, that helps. And then there's another just yes with,
Good.
So I think, let me refresh one more time and just kind of see you. So I'm looking over here. And so you did have that comment about they wanted to upvote your session 100 times, but I'm looking in here and you have 5 upvotes in here already. So that is awesome. Let's see here. There was another comment that said, we appreciate the great presentation with some great practical things that we can try. So you had that as well.
So glad it was useful, guys. Like, I'm so glad. I'm so glad.
Yes, I think it was great. I think that's it then. I don't see anything else coming in. Thank you for sharing where we can find you, how we can stalk you, how we can DM you if we need any questions.
Slide into those DMs. Slide on in there.
We're going to slide on in there with affirmation requests and things like that. So thank you so much for your time today, Jess, and hopefully we will see you around.
Sounds good, guys. Thank you so much. It was a mother-loving honor. Goodbye.
Yay. Bye. Have a good day.